Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. Before we dive into today's topic, I just want to send a ton of love over to the Wayward Realms team. They're working on a game that looks really awesome. It's inspired by Elder Scrolls, and that's because the main mind behind this game is Julian LeFay. Julian is the father of Elder Scrolls. Without him, we never would have got games that I played a ton, like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. But he was there to push for the initial existence of this series and its follow-up. So without him, I would not have some of my core gaming memories. So I'm always going to be thankful for that. I'm talking about all of this because unfortunately the news recently broke that Julian LeFay passed after a battle with cancer. So I wanted to send a lot of love over to this team as well as Julian's family. And I also wanted to make sure that my audience, who I know cares a lot about Elder Scrolls, was aware that the main mind behind it has now passed, but his final work here in the Wayward Realms continues on. And if it's something you want to check out, I'll have it linked down below alongside a message from the company founders. So again, just a lot of love over to the Wayward Realms team. I'm sure it's not an easy time over there. Same with Julian's family. It's tough to watch a loved one go like that, but all my love with you guys. And now let's dive into today's topic. So the news has broken, and I have to say I'm a bit surprised that Xbox bent the knee here. They really came out hard saying $80 was the new standard. After Nintendo creaked that door open a bit with Mario World, Xbox, as I covered on Defining Duke and here on the channel, I felt got overly aggressive, barging down that same door and saying all games would be $80, jacking up the price of hardware. It was time for them to collect their money now. I thought that this was an interesting choice, but at the same time, I thought Xbox would be a little bit more smart with how they delineated their $80 games. Certainly, we'd lead with Call of Duty, right? Wrong. After the Outer Worlds 2 Developer Direct, we learned that would be Xbox's first $80 game, and it would be the second $80 game in existence. I just felt so bad for Obsidian because in every interview with the games director, Brandon Adler, it would always turn into, hey, what's up with the price tag? And he's like, dude, I'm the director. Like, I'm not calling this shot. That goes down to Xbox. And it kept getting deflected to Xbox over and over. But time in, time out, I continuously said on this channel, what they're doing to this game is unacceptable. You let a game like Call of Duty, the invulnerable one, if you will, try and take that fall. You don't pass it off to Obsidian, who's been an absolute superstar for your organization during an absolutely dire generation in many ways, and say, hey, you get to shoulder the burden of an $80 video game. It completely took away from the conversation on the Outer Worlds 2. It's now a $70 game, which, to be honest, a lot of people were like, oh, they swindled you. It's still a steep price tag, but 70 has become the norm in many ways. I would rather Outer Worlds 2 be sitting at the norm rather than the second ever $80 game. It just didn't make sense. And I think it's because, as I've said many times before, fans are not ready to pay $80 for just any video game. It's way too much. I was just having a birthday dinner with my family, and I told my brother about $80 games, and he went, see, this is why I don't play anymore. It's way too expensive. And I'm sure that's the case for many people out there. For those of us who even game a general amount, we have a huge backlog. Why would I spend $80 on your game when I got so much going on over here? I can still keep gaming. It's going to be way cheaper, and I'll hit you up when the price lowers. I imagine the reason they dropped this price tag is simply put, the pre-orders are likely disastrous. You have to remember that they were accepting pre-orders. So on top of this news, with the Outer Worlds 2 dropping this price point, they also announced over Obsidian that they are refunding those who did pre-order the game, giving them some of their money back. To go to that length when you're already accepting money means that pre-orders are not pouring in the way that they expected. And keep in mind, this isn't an Xbox exclusive. This is a multi-platform game. So as I've said time in, time out, I just don't think people are ready for $80. Some are trying to have the conversation, oh, it's indicative more of Outer Worlds quality. Look at what's happening with Mario Kart World. I kind of treat Nintendo invulnerability a bit differently from like Obsidian trying to sell, you know, a really good looking RPG for $80. But I really feel the backbreaker was probably Borderlands 4. I feel like that was a moment everyone was watching where, hey, it's 2K. We know 2K no doubt is going to charge us an arm and a leg for GTA 6. We got Borderlands coming up. And whether you love or hate Randy Pitchford, the reality is the Borderlands series has sold tens of millions of copies. It's one of the most popular IP in gaming. And that's even through its stumbles, through the movie. That's through games that I didn't think were as good, like Pre-Sequel or Tiny Tina Wonderlands. And to some degree, when it comes to the storytelling, even 3. Despite that, this series has rocketed to popular heights. It could have gone for $80, but when it's stuck at 70, I felt like that was another sign, companies are paying attention and they're starting to realize that $80 is not the right price point to be at. You could even look at, and admittedly, we have to parse through this data a bit more. I'll break it down with some more nuance, but you can look at the recent Circana results. Now, what you see here is not including hardware bundles. That has to be kept in mind here because if included, Mario Kart World could very easily jump to the #1 spot. But the reality is when it comes to buying games on a storefront with a console that has around estimated 5 million units out in the wild, it was outsold by both Death Stranding 2 as well as Elden Ring Night Rain. Now, Night Rain is money in the bank, of course. But I was a little bit surprised to see the invulnerable Nintendo take a little bit of damage there. I mean, to be fair, again, it's not including hardware bundles, but that does also say to me that many people jumped for the hardware bundle because they weren't willing to pay $80 for Mario Kart World. Many were. It was the new launch game for the system, but I just find that all to play out a bit interestingly. The data is suggesting people are not quite leaping to $80 unless it's something they absolutely know they are going to love. Because I look at something like Forza Horizon 5. Game's been on the market for a while. It's one of the best-selling games of the year. It comes out, and there is an $80 premium version, and it did give you early access and whatnot, and that was the best-selling version of the game for a while. So I think when people know they want something, they'll pay pretty much whatever for it. You know, people will pay additional money to get early access to Hogwarts Legacy. Those things exist, but the starting value of a game being at $80, it's just, especially in today's economy, way too much money. And especially when Western AAA has stumbled so many times and you accompany that with Xbox leadership and issues with the brand, you need to take a win here. This is the right time to drop the price tag. The problem for Xbox, not for us, by the way, the problem for Xbox, however, is now when they try to push $80 again, fans know we can bully you right back into this, bro. We just don't have to pre-order. But this is why when people tell me, they're like, oh, you're too negative. You're too critical of Xbox. I'm like, this is why myself and others do what we do. It's super important to get the message out there that this type of shit's just unacceptable. You can't go out there and put a team like Obsidian in a bad spot when they've done so much for you this generation. Pentiment, Grounded, Avowed. Whatever you feel about these games, the reality is that in a generation where many of Xbox's studios that they bought have not produced much at all, Obsidian has produced multiple games in a generation, which is practically unheard of if you just survey the landscape of game releases. Their output is otherworldly, right there next to Insomniac Games. So when I see Obsidian getting put right in front of a moving train, going full speed at them, by the company that they've helped out so much. I know it's good business, of course, like they just want to sell product. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about this like, hey bro, I got you. We're going to release a few games here, but you get the idea. It's good business partnership to be like, hey, we're not going to put your game in a bad spot to lead off a new marketing push of $80 games and jacked up console prices. We don't want you to take that blemish. We'll let the more, as I said, the invulnerable one, something in like a Call of Duty, take that blow for you, which makes all the world of sense to me, especially with the budget Call of Duty works with compared to something like the Outer Worlds 2. It comes down to greed. And so a lot of people interpret that type of critique as hatred. Like, I absolutely hate to my core Xbox. It's like, I grew up an Xbox kid for most of my life. I want all these gaming companies to succeed, but also you have to critique the things you love. You have to make it clear to the companies that you're interested in that like, hey, I'm seeing you go left here. And a lot of your fans are too. And we see the business results of it now. That's why myself and others do what we do. Not saying like I'm some friggin' hero here. I'm sure you already know I don't feel that way about myself. But to be clear, it's just about this is why you use your platform. This is why you vote with your wallet. This is why you speak out. This is why I called for action back when the Xbox layoffs were happening, because there is an impact that can happen. I think we live in such a world nowadays where people are so used to seeing rich individuals just bulldoze the criticism, find success despite what many of us are saying. So we accept the status quo. And I understand that. Sometimes I feel like it can be a little hopeless. I'm not trying to get deeply philosophical here. We are just talking about the Outer Worlds too. But at the end of the day, these things can change if you vote with your wallet, if you speak your mind. And so I hope out of everything people see with this news here, that is the main takeaway. That $80 is unacceptable, and if we treat it as such, these companies will recognize it's unacceptable, or at the very least that only specific games like a GTA 6 or the launch of the Switch 2 with a title that has a bundled in $50 version of the game that you could easily get those caveats can exist, but the general consensus of like $80, that may make sense for their development timelines, their budgets, how they're mismanaging their projects. It does not make sense for us at the end of the day. It just doesn't. You can tell me all day, gaming is a luxury hobby. Stop gaming if $10 is make or break. No. Starting price point at $80, we're just not there. Game quality just isn't there on a consistent level for everyone to be asking me $80. Yeah, does it drive me into places like Game Pass? Of course, I can see the whole galaxy brain plan for Xbox, but the reality is, to me, if you're making this choice, you're not seeing a significant bump in Game Pass subscriptions with these price jumps, and the pre-orders were bad. Again, to start refunding people, you have to understand how significant that part is. To start refunding people, to go through this length before the launch of the game, to also show weakness potentially in the product, like, hey, we don't believe this is an $80 game. That says a lot too. So again, I just urge you all to continue to respectfully and responsibly use your voice. The second you get out of line, you start going for personal insults and saying crazy stuff, that's when these companies just shut the blinders and they don't listen to you. That's the difference here. I think the criticism was loud and clear since the developer direct. Xbox did try to force this. They announced it well in advance. Hey, pre-order $80. They continued to try and push it into the next month, but here they are, and they're realizing this isn't working. Like, we need to drop the price point. So I'm sure many people will still wait for a sale. I get that. Many games, most games are bought on sale. So a lot of these price drops are accounted for. Like, more people will probably be buying this at like the $60 price point, maybe even the $50 price point than the $70. So yeah, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but like, it just, to me, is a significant moment where the gamer can take control of the situation and say, no, we don't accept this, and watch the change happen across the industry. If you don't like this, you see what happens. People didn't like the Outer Worlds 2, maybe to the level I did, where I was like, yeah, I'm playing that no matter what. So people voted with their wallet. These companies can talk their talk, walk their walk, and they'll end up walking into a financial ditch at some point if they keep ignoring you. And they keep ignoring, oh, no one's pre-ordering our $80 game. Let's keep going. No. They'll change. They'll bend. You just got to give them a reason to. So that's all I've got for you. Just wanted to talk about this price point. Very happy to see them cave in. What does it mean for the future of the Xbox slate? I think it's going to go back to that sort of touch and go with the IP. Like, if you're a worthwhile IP and not something like the Outer Worlds, which started off like a $60 AA RPG and is trying to elevate itself a bit more, that's not an $80 price point. But is Fable, Forza Horizon 6? Yeah, I'm sure those will be 80. Gears of War E-Day, I'm sure that'll also be 80. I think if you've got brand recognition, you can probably push your luck a little bit more. I'll be interested to see how Xbox maneuvers this moving forward, but I'm glad Obsidian has dodged the bullet here, got out of the way, and so I can't wait for the Outer Worlds 2, and I'm glad we can actually talk about the game a little bit more rather than the $80 price point. Let me know your thoughts down below. Looking forward to reading them. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.